Hi everyone, and welcome to week 7. Um, while I'm downloading my materials, I just want to remind you to go ahead and make sure that you complete your reading first. And then after you've read, then do your simulation, which will be needed this week. It's a little different this week, the homework, but you should be okay doing it. Because I'm going to walk you through the steps. It's just a little different. Then after you've done that, you're going to go into where just was and download your instructions. So we've got a two-pager for this week's homework, and there are 15 steps. And I am going to go a little slow as you really need to read the entire question and then make the move. And there are some that are in here like step 7 and 8. They're a little trickier, and so I want to make sure that you're actually understanding those moves. And I will tell you that this week that simulation comes in handy, completing that first, including your reading. Let me go ahead and do a quick save as. The fastest way to do a save as is F12. Again, I'm teaching towards that test. Also, I will tell you that I notice that when I do this more than once, my student download materials are just coming up the word student. So when you do yours, you should, and if you do it the first time, it will have your last name instead of student. I've done this a couple of times, just kind of practicing because I did not read slowly enough, like I've warned you when you get down to some of these detailed instructions since I missed a couple of things. So that's why mine just says student and does not say my last name. Alrighty, so we've already done step 1, and now we're going to step 2, and it says in cells B10 and C10 to calculate formulas to calculate totals for each column. I am not going to do the longhand way equals and then do the addition. I'm just going to go ahead and click my auto sum, and I know that it's B5 to B9 is the range, and then I'm going to click this for my enter, and then I'll go ahead and then just drag this over for copying. Step 3, in cell D5, you are going to construct a formula to calculate the percentage of the total projected investments right here for pooled investments, and this is pooled investments, and this is your projected investments for next year's fiscal year. And then you're going to divide that by the projected investments for next year for pooled investments by the total right here projected investments for next fiscal year. And then we're going to use an absolute cell reference as necessary to format the result in percent style and then center the percentage. So let me go ahead and get this started. So equals to start any formula. And it says to first calculate the percent for the total projected investments. So this is my total projected investments for the pooled investments, so C5, and then we're going to divide this of the projected investments for next fiscal year for pooled investments by the total projected investments for next fiscal year by T10 or C10. But we're not done because then it says to use the absolute value, which is your F4 function key, as necessary to format the result. And I'm going to finish this up in 1 second. I'm going to stop reading. I do not want to make C5 absolute because when I use my fill handle and I go all the way down to D9, if I have C5 as absolute, that will not change. It stays C5. I definitely want C10 to be absolutely the same. Absolute, your F4 key. I don't want this to change. C5, I want it to change because I'll be going from C5, I'm going down, it'll be C6, then C7, C8, and C9. I'll go ahead and use this enter here. And now it says to make that percent style, and we want to center this in the cell. And now we can go ahead and use the fill formula down to D9. And I'll just click in this one so you can see that we've got C6, 7, 8, and 9. It's changing. However, my formula in C10 never changed. That's because I absolutely did not want it to change, and I used the absolute reference here. Step 4. Select the non-adjacent ranges of A5 to A9, and now use your control key and go to C5 to C9 as the data for the pie chart. We are now going to insert a pie chart that is a 3D pie chart. And you are going to move this pie chart to a new sheet named projected, and I've missed this a couple times. I had typos, so go slow. Make sure you go back and look at the spelling, projected, and then investments. And now we've got a new sheet here. So now step 5 says for the chart title, and I'm going to click it once to accept this. It's selected. I can see my selection handles. If I double click, it takes me there, and if I triple click, hardly ever works. If you triple click, it should gather all of the words going in. Even just clicking one time, you can start typing, so it doesn't really matter. And we are going to type projected revenue for this. And again, I've missed this a couple times, so make sure that you don't have any typos. So projected revenue. And then we're going to format this chart title using Word Art Style. So we're going to go to Format, and then we're going to go to Word Art. So open your drop down, your More button, and we are going to pick Fill Orange Accent 1 Shadow. And then you're going to change the font size to 32. And down in step 5, it does say, note, depending on the version of Office being used, the style may be named Fill Orange Accent Color 1 Shadow. So just be mindful of that. Okay, step 6. Now it's going to get a little bit different. We are going to remove the legend. So here's our legend. We're going to remove this legend. And then we're going to add the data labels chart element formatted so that only the category name and percentage display positioned in the center. Let's go ahead and get rid of this legend first. So you're going to go to your chart elements, and you're going to just deselect. Now we're going to select data labels, and we are going to click our More button, because in the instructions in step 6 it says the data labels should be formatted for category name. So there's your category name and percentage. So your value and your show leaders lines need to come off. Okay, then we're still not done. It says to display positioned in the center. So we're just going to click center. In step 7, it says to change the font size of the data labels to 12. So I'm already in the Home tab. I'm going to go down to 12 and then apply bold. Control B gets you there. Format the data series using a 3D format effect. So our data series, if you will, is a little bit different. So let's make sure that you first click this chart area because we're not changing these. We're done doing the series labels. So click on your chart, and we are going to go into your effects, and we want 3D format effect. Again, this is your effects, and you want 3D format effects. It says to change the top bevel and bottom bevel to the last bevel style in the last row. Let me do that first. So my top, and this is the last row, and then bottom, last row. Then it says for the top bevel width and height, set it to 350. And then set the bottom bevel width and the height to 0. And let me remind you that you've got 50 minutes on your final with about 40 questions. Don't sit there and try to use your up and down arrows to click, especially trying to get to 350. Just go right in there and set those values manually because it'll take you too long. That's pulling time away. After you've done that, the next step says to change the material to the third standard effect, plastic. So there's the material. We're going to click the drop down arrow and then we're going to go right over to plastic. So this is really giving it some pop. It looks a little different. I'm digging this. This is kind of nice. Okay, number 8, step 8. Now it's going to get a little bit more hairier. It says display the series options. You may recall that we went into chart tools and format in chapter 2. I'm just going to go over here and go click series because I want it to bring up my format data series, and it looks a little bit different. And what we're going to end up doing is the instruction says to set the angle of the first slice to 100 so that the pooled investment slice is in the front of the pie. So this is going to move in just a second. And then it says select the pooled investment slice and then explode it to 10%. And so to do that, we are going to click on the series options and we're going to change this to 100, and you can just go ahead and hit enter. Now pooled has moved down towards the bottom and our pie we want to set at 10% and click, whoops, sorry about that. That's not what we want to do. We actually just want just the pooled investment. So make sure that you just have pooled investment selected. And by the way, you can tell because I've got these little selection buttons right here. So after you do that, then we will change this to 10%. And then that just pulls it away from the pie. Next, we're going to change the fill color of the pooled investment slice to a solid fill using orange accent 6 lighter 40%. Just get used to your little paint bucket. That's your color. And so you're going to go into fill because it's saying solid fill. So we know it's going to be fill. And so we're going to choose this radio box or button for solid fill. And we want orange accent 6 lighter 40%. By the way, these never change. This is always 50%. Right in the middle is usually 40%. This is 20 up at the top, or excuse me, 80. And so you're just going to have to kind of get used to the percentages. It'll make it go faster when you do that. And these are all the same going across, just different colors. Next, format the chart area by applying a gradient fill using any preset. So we want the chart area. I suppose you could go up here and click. There's a couple other ways to do that. Just clicking here and getting off of this pie, this chart area. Don't go into any of these. You can see that my chart element is actually changing. Just to be clear, I like actually using this because it tells me that I'm picking a chart area if you're not familiar with where to click within the chart area. So chart elements. And what does it say? We want gradient fill using any preset. So I can just go in here and choose any preset that I want. Let's just try this one. That gives it a nice pop of color. There is a note in step 8. Depending upon the version of Office being used, the gradient fill may be named light variation linear down. I'm sorry. So let's just make sure that we actually choose preset using preset gradient. And then step 9, format the border of the chart area by adding a solid line border using orange accent 1, and it has to be a 5-point width. So I'm going to go ahead and click this arrow and close up the fill so that I can get to the border. And then we want a solid line, and we want orange accent 1, and we want it to be a 5-point width. Number 10, and we're getting close to being done. In fact, just let me pause just for a second. I like having these borders around the different charts. So if your boss asks you to make some kind of a chart, this really does make things stand out nicely. I just want to point that out to you. Okay, step 10, display the page setup dialog box. So we're going to go to page layout and page setup. And for this chart, we are going to insert a custom footer in the left section with the file name. And then just go ahead and click OK, and then OK. Step 11 says display sheet 1 and rename the sheet investment sources. I'm going to double click down here for sheet 1 and then make sure that you have no typos. And we've got investment sources, and then click any blank cell to cancel any selections. Now we're going to go to cell A12 and you're going to type goal colon increase endowment, I've got Butterfingers, fund from 8% to 10%. And I'm just going to quickly look. Goal colon increase endowment fund from 8% to 10%. I'm going to use this enter. And the reason why is because if I click enter on my key, it moves me down a cell, and I already know that I want to stay here because the next step is telling me to do a merge and center across to D12. And whoops, sorry about that. And to do that, I know that I've got to stay there, so I'm just going to do it this way. And it's also asking us now to apply a heading 3 style. So here's our styles, heading 3, and then in cell A13, we're going to type goal amount. And I will just go ahead and click my insert or enter key on my keyboard here. We are going to copy the cell range from C6 to D6 into cell B13. And I like that. So we had 2 columns that we used, but just going into B13 and doing a Control V to paste, it actually takes 2 columns, meaning that my 2 columns here are now 2 columns here in B and C. In the past versions, it didn't do that. So like 2010, 2013, 27, you could, or 2007, you couldn't do that. However many cells you gathered, so if I took that many cells, I would actually have to count out that many cells to do my my pasting. So this is a nice feature for 2016 that we have. Alrighty, now also in step C, after you've done that, you will now click in cell C13, and then we're going to use the goal seek to determine the projected amount of endowment investments. Goal seek. So we're going to go into data, and then we're going to go into what if, and we're going to goal seek. So let me move this down, and we want to know what if this were set at 10% for this value for B13. And so we're going to say OK, and it changes it. So everything changed, and we're going to say OK here. Step 13, select the range A13 to C13, and we are going to apply the 20% accent for cell style. 20% accent for cell style. And then in B13, from the cell style gallery, you are going to apply the currency 0 cell style. So this is the number format, and we want currency 0. From the page setup dialog box, we are going to center the worksheet horizontally, and then we're going to insert a custom footer in the left section with the file name. And then ensure that your worksheets are correctly named. And it looks like mine are. And then we're going to place in the following order in the workbook. So we've got projected investments and then investment sources. And now let's go ahead and do a save, and we're going to exit. And then we're going to go ahead and upload this. So hopefully I've got this right. I've done this a couple times. It's a little bit different. Yep, and I did just get another 100. When you're doing these, make sure that you read the entire question first. And I want to stress that, especially when you're taking your final. The final has changed since I've taken it, and I'll be taking it again when you all do. The question, you really need to read it first because it tells you the move to make, and then it tells you then what cell to do when after you've read the question. It's like the last part of the question. You know, you're going to be making the move in cell D10. So just make sure you read the entire question first, then make the move. That's it. This didn't take me very long. Hopefully I didn't give you too much information. If you have any questions, please use the Ask the Instructor tab in Blackboard. Good luck, everyone.